4.5 notes are back to graphing lines, and this time we have a shortcut for how to graph the lines. If the line is written in slope-intercept form, there's a quick and easy way to graph the line. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. In that equation, the m and the b each stand for something. The m is how you move to get to the next point, and the m, like we learned in the last section, is the slope of the line. The b value is the beginning point on the line, and mathematically speaking, the b is the y-intercept. Whenever you graph a line in slope-intercept form, you should follow these steps. And slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. First thing you're going to do is graph the beginning point, which is always the b part of the equation. Since the b is the y-intercept of the graph, that point is going to be right on the y-axis. From that beginning point, use the slope, which is the m part of the equation, and that's going to tell you how to move from that point. As you graph it, be sure to graph all of the nice points on the graph. Those notes are in your packet, so you can open your packet and find that page and have it open as we go through these notes to refer back to it. But we're not going to do the examples that are in the packet, since those are your homework. We're going to do some different equations that are in y equals mx plus b form. These are the four that we're going to graph. So buy a sheet of graph paper or make your own grid to graph it. Write down those four equations, and then we'll work on graphing all four of them together. When we're graphing these, we want to start with figuring out what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. If the line is written in y equals mx plus b form, the m is always going to be the number that's being multiplied by the x, and the b is always going to be the number that's all by itself. In this case, -3. So the step said the first thing I need to do is graph my beginning point. Since that's the y-intercept, it's going to be right on the y-axis, down at -3. The slope tells me how to move, and remember that's a rise over a run. So I'm going to rise 1, run 2 to get to my next point. And then rise 1 and run 2 again and again until I run out of room on the graph paper. When I run out of room on that side, then I go in the opposite direction. So now I'm going to go down 1 and backwards 2. Down 1, backwards 2, until I run out of room on the graph paper. Then use something nice and straight and connect those dots to form a line. The line does keep going, so make sure you have arrows on each side. The second one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start by figuring out what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. The slope is always the number that's right next to the x, and the y-intercept is the number that's all by itself. The y-intercept is where we begin on the y-axis, so I'm going to go up to 5 on the y-axis and make my beginning point. And from there I'll use the slope. Now the slope is supposed to be a rise over a run, so I want to make my slope look like a fraction. -2 is the same thing as -2 over 1. So I'm going to rise -2 and run 1. Well, if I'm rising a negative, that means I'm actually going down 2, but still to the right 1. The run always goes to the right. Down to right 1. And we need all of the nice points on the graph, so go until you get to the very end. And then reverse directions. Go up 2 and to the left 1 until you run out of room again. Use like a ruler or a straight edge and make a very straight line between those two, or all of those points. And it is a line that keeps going, so put arrows at the end. Pause the video and see if you can figure out how to graph these next two on your own. And once you've had a chance to do it, resume the video and then we'll compare answers and see how you did. Compare the graphs that you have to these and see how well you did. The first one should begin at -2 and then go up 4 and over 5 to get to the next points. Make sure that you did put arrows at the end of your line. The second one began at -2 and it had a slope of 3 over 1. So it went up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, all the way across the graph. The other concept in this section is kind of going in reverse of what we just did. What if we started with the graph? Would you be able to work backwards and write the equation? Pause the video and copy down those two graphs, and then press play once you're ready to get the answer. We're going to do this the same way we did the last ones. We're going to look at the picture though and figure out what's the slope and what's the y-intercept in the picture. I'm going to start just like I do when I graph it with the beginning point. The beginning point is the y-intercept. And this graph begins at +3. So the b, or the y-intercept, is 3. The slope is how I'm going to move across this graph. And they gave me 2 nice points to focus on. So I just need to figure out what's the rise over the run between those 2 nice points. Looks like it rises 1, 2, 3 and runs 1, 2, 3. So the rise over the run is 3 over 3, but that reduces to 1 whole. If the slope is 1 and the y-intercept is 3, the equation in y equals mx plus b form is y equals 1x plus 3. We'll do the same thing for this graph, figure out what the y-intercept and the slope are, and then plug them in to write an equation. This graph begins at 3 again. Just a coincidence that they begin at the same spot. And then how does it move? It moves from nice point to nice point by going down 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. So the slope is down 1, that's -1, to the right 2. The rise over run, or the slope, is -1/2. So if we plug that into y equals mx plus b, we get y equals -1/2 x plus 3. See if you can write an equation for those 2 graphs. Pause the video, show your work, and write an equation for those 2, and then we'll compare answers. At this point, you should have had an opportunity to try writing an equation for those 2 on your own. For the first one, it begins at... Oh no, I thought it would work. Sorry about that. It begins at -1, and it goes up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, so the slope is 3 over 1, making the equation y equals 3x minus 1. For the second one, it begins at 5, but it has a slope of 0. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Remember lines like this, if we were skiing, it would be 0 fun to ski. If we plug those in, we get y equals 0x plus 5. And 0x really isn't anything, so it's just y equals 5. And that works. We remember from before that y equals lines are always horizontal lines. And this is a horizontal line. The homework in this section is in the worksheet from your packet and also from the textbook. You're going to do numbers 26 through 37 all.